Welcome back to WTF Is Up. I'm your co-host, Jeremy,
And I'm Omar.
and we are joined by the incredible, the amazing, the incendiary Kay Dawson, Assistant Dean of Careers at the University of Washington Foster School of Business. Kay, you are the third musketeer to our dynamic duo. Thank you so much for joining us.
It is my absolute pleasure to be here. I hope I can live up to that fantastic introduction.
And we've got to start by giving a little bit more context because we didn't just find Kay on LinkedIn somewhere. Kay is our OG. And Omar, how did Kay bring the LinkedIn guys together in the very first place?
Yeah, we have to give Kay her props. Jeremy and I had worked together, but Kay said, hey, you went to Haas. Our students really need some help with LinkedIn. And we prepared like this presentation for the MBAs about how to get 10 steps ahead with LinkedIn. And then Kay was like, hey, you guys should like make this a thing. Every school needs this. And also we could create this for Berkeley, but also use it elsewhere. And she was like, yes. And also, how can I help? And so she helped us get the word out. She keynoted conferences with us and was just so instrumental to this partnership. So, hey, thank you for that. And thanks for joining us today.
I want to say that original like classroom session that you did is still recording on the career management like intranet page. It's great. And I have you to thank for the first and only time I am going to be in print in a New York Times bestseller in the acknowledgement section of a book. So I will probably have that on my gravestone. Was featured in NY Times bestselling book.
So this is what Kay has unleashed upon the world. And Kay is an absolute expert in her own right, because in addition to serving at the University of Washington's Foster School, Berkeley's Haas School, University of Chicago Booth School, Kay has been an absolute career guru across the world, especially when it comes to business schools. So Kay, are you ready to dive in to the ultimate question? WTF is up with business schools?
Absolutely. Can't wait.
Okay, so as you may know, Omar blesses every episode with one of his famous or infamous dad jokes.
All right. Do you know why the MBA broke up with his girlfriend?
It depends. The classic MBA answer.
Yes.
That's a good one. I was thinking he found a new model, like a spreadsheet.
God.
I don't know.
It's terrible.
Yep. You're welcome.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
Let's jump in. Let's jump in.
Forgive me if I don't repeat that one.
So
All right.
let's start with
go ahead,
the
Dan.
let's start with the school side of things, and we'll get into the student side and some advice for what you can do about all of this. But Kay, because you've been in this world for so long and you've built so many great connections and helped so many students launch their careers, give us a little sense. What WTF is up with MBA programs today? What is the lay of the land of that business school education circa 2025?
Okay, I have to kind of bear in mind that in case anyone from the real world, i.e. my employer, I can't be too scathing. But so for context, I work at a school where it currently has two separate careers teams. The team I work with and lead, who support the evening, currently a 3-year, 2-night-a-week program, and your classic full-time MBA program, 2-year kind of residential, non-work compatible. Then Foster also has an exec MBA, a hybrid, technology management, other programs which are more money earners compared to a full-time MBA program, which tends to be a loss leader, but it's important for the rankings, so gotta keep it going. I think we're at this inflection point where...
Wait. I want to hear about this inflection point. Sorry.
Okay.
I definitely want to hear about the inflection point because I think we all know there's a lot of stuff changing in the MBA market. But are you telling me that full-time MBA programs, which charge exorbitant tuitions, are not necessarily all moneymakers?
Not necessarily for every campus. It really depends on whether it's tuition-based or fee-based. And in some cases, the overheads that a program or a school pays to central campus to cover the services that the university campus as a whole will provide can sometimes be suffocating, especially for schools like mine who are in the public side of higher education. I mean, if you were to compare on most state campuses, the business school to say the School of Engineering, arts and letters, whatever it is, because we have these alternative funding models, we tend to be better off in terms of a balance sheet P&L. But if you go down to the kind of like the granular program level, you're going to have some that are not profitable, which is why you're seeing a lot of schools launching these certificate programs or these 1-year short course masters for people who have maybe a liberal arts degree who want to get into business because they're having to cover these massive overheads to central campus on programs that aren't necessarily profitable. Plus, enrollment rates are declining. So again, you've got the bums on seats challenge versus the keeping head above water from a monetary standpoint.
Right,
Wow.
right. So
There
that
you
we call that
go. There goes the first layer of the onion.
that's yeah, we call that brand extension. How else can I
Mhm.
monetize this thing?
There we go.
So
Yes.
so let's go back to what you were saying. So tell us more about the history of the MBA as you've been a part of so many institutions and where we are now in this inflection point.
I'm going to be that person who says, well, COVID, but that really did fundamentally change the kind of the recruiting model for a lot of companies. It used to be the case, and I often talk with my business school peers about this, of pre-pandemic when campus recruiting was still very much a big thing. Career management teams could be like the gatekeeper. You only got access to students if you posted your job on a school's platform, if you agreed to come to campus. The school's like, we'll put to the white glove service, we'll book your interview rooms, we'll do your schedule, we'll organize catering, we'll find a suite of Ubers to take you to and from the airport. You name it, resources permitting, they'll do it. But come the pandemic, the firms are like, well, we can't come to your school. So what is the value advantage of us posting that full spectrum with you? We have our own systems internally for recruiting, direct hires. Why don't we just pull a lot of the campus element into this? So it started with consulting firms, then it went to banks, and they all were very much, we have our direct route to market now. So where does the business school careers team add value? And is there still a need for this traditional campus model across the board? Or is it really only a few industries now that do these massive kind of cohort hiring in volume versus a lot of firms who are like, well, we understand, especially in the US, it's very different outside of the US. We understand the MBA degree, but in this era of wanting the perfect candidate to start in the job, which, as we know, is the hiring manager's plea to say, get me someone who knows what they're doing because I'm so overtaxed. I don't have time to train up a career switcher. What is the MBA of value really anymore? So at least what I've been seeing kind of post-pandemic is this shrinking of traditional MBA roles outside of your professional services, banking, consulting, investment management. The big volume will take a massive number of your MBAs, tech as well, and either reprogram them or stick a higher price tag on their hourly billing rate because they have an MBA from a top school we want someone who is great at the job, who's bringing soft skills and hard skills. That person doesn't necessarily have to have an MBA. What are you adding to the mix because you have an MBA over and above what our role description says of hard skills, core, and soft skills, maybe not quite so visible outside of a well-crafted behavioral interview response.
Wow, you're giving me chills here, Kay, because I'm thinking about
It's tough.
I know all the stuff that I just assumed to always be true about the MBA throughout time immemorial, and now that's all being questioned. What are schools doing?
I fundamentally think it's a good degree.
Yeah.
It's what I think why people are doing it has changed, and there's a lot of market research.
Talk more about that, because you mentioned also that people are applying less frequently to business school, which is shocking because applications to law school are through the roof. What are people coming to business school for, and how are schools responding?
This is the challenge. And again, it depends on how far up the rankings you are as to, your access to the top of the funnel. I think GMAT data is that there's a slight decline in domestic candidates taking the GMAT. Not everyone does well with testing. It's a very archaic, Western European colonial structure for education.
Yeah, thanks for nothing, Kay.
Yeah, you're welcome. But again, if you hadn't kicked us out, you could have had a royal family. You could have had the 26th of December off. Universal health care. I'll just leave it there.
Hey, don't go there. That's touchy.
Moving on. Testing, not everyone is comfortable with that. Not everyone sees the value of taking a long time out of the workplace to do this degree, which gives you access to a huge network, access to a improved education and market relevant, in theory, skills. But there's a huge amount of risk involved, especially for a large number of programs that are now admitting lots and lots of international students. They're incurring US debt and they can't work here because the employment conditions around immigrants are such that it's not as easy to hire someone like myself who's bringing a global perspective and a valuable skill set to help enrich and improve US institutions.
Oh, I thought this whole time you were just faking this accent.
I know. So I've worked really hard at it. Lots of Bridgerton.
So let's frame this conversation with a little bit of data. So if the first thing is what you were saying about the GMAT, about a quarter of business schools have actually eliminated that requirement altogether. And about half of the top 25 schools have said, hey, it's optional. Certainly the school I work at, it's
Same
optional.
as us. This one as well. Terrifies me, but there we go.
Yep. So that's one thing. Also, just want to share a little bit of data here from GMAC that you mentioned, which is looked at the skills that are going to be most in demand for MBAs looking 5 years out. So they asked employers and recruiters 5 years from now, what are going to be the core skills? And can you guess what rose up all of a sudden from last year to this year?
Give
From
you a
number
clue. It's 2
15
letters.
Yep. From number 15 to number 1, what are those 2 letters?
AI. I have that list written on my whiteboard over there as a constant reminder of what actually recruiters and companies are looking for. Therefore, if we're building out a careers curriculum, it's got to be giving students an understanding of what is going to matter in 3 to 5 years' time. The obvious things are still there, like strategic thinking, systems thinking, but AI is like shot up.
It has, along with technology skills in general. Both of these are now in the top 5, and we'll come back to AI. But I thought it was interesting what you just alluded to, that still durable, in the skill set that they say they're going to need. You still have strategic thinking. You still have data analysis and interpretation, problem solving, communication skills. There's also some similar data looking out 5 years from the World Economic Forum this year, in which they were talking about, of course, AI, tech literacy are the core skills. But right there, right up behind those are creativity, right? Resilience, flexibility, curiosity, leadership and social influence, analytical thinking. Now, we could also have a separate debate about the extent to which MBA programs prepare you with those things, but the equation is just not quite as simple as, it's all AI now or we're totally irrelevant. Thoughts on that, guys?
I mean, all the kind of the skills, the attributes, the competencies you just listed out, part of me is like, do you need an MBA to be able to show mastery in those? I mean, Jeremy's friends over at Khan Academy, could you do a short course on resilience and get a certification that sticks up on your LinkedIn page saying, I'm an expert in resilience? I don't want it. They employ me. I'm not going to say it's a rubbish degree, but it is, what I want to say is the idea of this MBA job, a job that only an MBA can do, no longer exists. And that's the hardest thing, I think, for prospective applicants and students who currently arrive in our schools going, hang on, I thought it was a dead through line, trail of breadcrumbs checklist for me to get this MBA job. There isn't an MBA job anymore. So it's, what does that degree, in the case of a full-time person taking 2 years out of the working world, are they really going to exponentially accelerate over and above a peer who stayed in the same place and maybe moved companies once or didn't move companies? Is the MBA going to be earning more at a higher title with greater responsibility? Is that predicated, or does it depend on the individual as to how much they are showing that they have those additional skills and employers are looking for, rather than just going, well, I'm a insert name of top business school MBA. What job do you have for me?
Wow.
Which is what an MBA said to me once at a career fair, and I nearly yelled at them.
Yes. So speaking of insert top business school here, one of those very schools was in the august digital pages of Poets and Quant. And there was a big brouhaha at Stanford GSB recently where the students were saying, you are not teaching us well enough. You are not getting us ready for this age of AI. You're teaching us with same techniques from 30 years ago. Therefore, we're not ready. And also, we want our money back, given what you've charged us for. What do you think about that, Kay?
I have that direct quote, Jeremy.
Yes.
Because I have this actually up on my phone from months ago. We're not learning anything, was the exact quote. And yeah, Kay, this is a really interesting question for you, because we are talking about the translation of the MBA skills into the new and future world of work. But you could also argue you're learning, right? It's a learning experience.
Yeah, and I wrote a repost, like, kind of, here's my thoughts on that particular article. It caused a lot of chit chat on our side of the fence. Admittedly, I will say a lot of us, but I'll use myself as the example rather than kind of applying judgment to others. I looked at that and went, this is clickbait. They went to one disgruntled student.
We'll reserve our judgment for GSBers because and the archetype that
Because they're
they
not
fit
hitting
in
themselves.
as Berkeley people.
There is a grain of truth in what, as with everything, in what they said. And it's certainly something that talking to students in the last couple of years is a concern for them. Like most programs, your majority of your first year is doing this core that is, everyone has to go through it, irrespective of whether you've done this stuff at undergrad or in the workplace. You've got to go through the sheep dip to get through core, and then you can go and start specializing via electives. Does that still work? Does that prepare you for the modern world? In a lot of cases, probably not. It should be more modular from the get-go. And knowing that with more and more, speaking as the old Gen Xer here, more younger generations, digital natives coming in who have a very different approach to learning styles. If we're asking them to physically appear in a classroom and do work in person, then that teaching intervention should be designed for what is actually bringing them together. They can do all the learning by rote and test out, at other times of the day. If you're bringing them here, it should be experiential. It should be relevant to the workplace. Case studies should be within the last 3 to 5 years. It shouldn't be the same old PowerPoint that the old crony faculty person who's had tenure for decades is just like change the date and time on the front page and said, here's my life's work, my research. You will learn it and you'll regurgitate it in an exam. That just doesn't work. And so if my entire experience thus far, and in the case, I believe this student was a second year, so they've gone into the workplace over the summer and realized that, maybe I was prepared for some things, but there's an awful lot I didn't know because I've been out of the workplace for a year and I kind of feel dumb in a way, but I don't want to show that I'm dumb or feeling awkward, so I have to kind of fake it till I make it. Yeah, you're going to be disgruntled because maybe that student didn't get the return offer that they thought they were going to get, and they attributed that lack of offer to being, I wasn't taught effectively in my first year. I didn't learn relevant information that would have helped me get this job. Now, any smart career professional would go, was that really the only reason? But that was their lived experience. And so they're probably quite right in saying, why do I have to use this Frankenstein campus IT system to bid for classes, to upload an assignment onto some learning management system? We're told we can't use Slack because it hasn't been sanctioned by IT or it's not FERCA compliant. And so everyone currently in the job is learning more and using more relevant technology and getting more exposure to these wacky, crazy business problems that they're solving now. Whereas I'm working on a case from Walmart from 10 years ago.
Okay.
10 years ago is fairly
team is
recent.
coming for you.
I know.
That's right.
Yeah, I work in a business school too, and we're teaching old stuff. That's not entirely the case, right? So some are trying to keep it current, to innovate, to keep connections into industry.
Mm-hmm.
But, my question to you is, in light of everything you just said, the UVA Darden response to that would be, well, we're exclusively, at least in the first year, case method. And we're very proud of that. And you made a good point about making sure cases are relevant and current. But what do you say to that? Because the proof is in the pudding. If you don't do the work, do the thinking ahead of time, and come into class and get cold called, right? You got to sort of prepare in a different way, and your thinking is challenged in that Socratic environment. Now, I would argue there's still the last mile we're not totally connecting, which is, what are you really learning in that experience that is then of true and sustaining market value? But what do you think about that common response you hear from business schools that say, hey, we're challenging people to think, and that's never going to go out of style?
Yes. And is everybody thinking to that same degree? This is the conversation I'm having internally with the team as we look to. We're one of the lucky few schools that have a dedicated credit earning career course in the first year. There's time within a student's fall quarter and winter quarter daily lesson plan that says there are certain chunks where it's career stuff and it's pass fail. But now that Kay's on board, there will be some fails unless you do the work. But we have evidence, and anecdotes of students who, well, you're MBAs. It's very easy to do a group project and have your name attributed. And you barely showed up for any of the group work. The biggest conversation, I'm sure it's happening at UVA, is what do we do about exams and tests now with AI? Are we going back to using
Every
blue
assignment.
books? Yeah.
Right.
Like, we're going to get them to handwrite in a staple-bound textbook from the
Blue books.
1980s. And so they're going to get cramped because no one holds a pen for that long anymore. Rather than thinking differently, how can we actually bring real-world use of these technologies and redesign our testing or our confirmation of learning and progress, that is saying it all has to be based on class participation. So as an instructor, I have to make sure that everybody is given an equal cold call to make sure they're all doing the work, rather than hiding beside a friend who's like, yes, it is a group assignment, but the person who has English as a second language, who didn't feel comfortable doing it without AI, uploaded massive paragraphs, dashes removed from ChatGPT. And I love the M dash. That's the one downside of ChatGPT.
Cool.
Let me use my M dashes.
Jeremy, I have one other quick question.
Yeah, go for it, Omar.
So, the other dynamic that could happen, I would argue has been happening, but could continue to happen and maybe even be exacerbated, is sort of this winner take all thing, right? There were articles written 10 plus years ago about how if you don't go to a top 25 business school, there's just not ROI, right? I've seen the same thing about top 10. I've seen the same thing about 15. We both work at schools that are solidly in the top 25, but if that slips, what's the enduring value prop? You're describing a lot of, I think, accurate trends here, but could it just be the case that a handful of schools ultimately win and take all the rewards and the jobs for their graduates?
Oh, God, if we could just do away with rankings, I'd be really happy. But I understand that's how the world works. You're driving a certain behavior by a ranking. But to answer your original question, is it going to be
winner takes all? That behavior, by the way, is real. I remember working with admissions offices who are like, what are the schools that students decide to go to over our school? It's literally
M7.
the ranking. It's just the ranking.
In previous schools, we've done similar. Like, where did take if you are prepared, Prospective turned us down to let us know either where else you were looking or where you accepted. They got the higher offer, they got moved up the value chain. Exactly. That's always going to be the case, but until such a time that we as business school administrators are unable to show the actual value of an MBA that's beyond just the education, that is the network, the access to lifelong benefits, I don't think it's going to be winner takes all. Yes, a lot of schools had to, both past tense had to, and are currently reevaluating their product portfolio, but fundamentally, they're not all going to go out of business overnight and just leave the top 25 in the running. Because in a lot of cases, it's a money spinner for the campus as well.
Wow, there's the football team, and then there's the business school.
Yeah, I mean, if I think about the last two schools I've been at, the business school is it has revenue generating units, programs, and we're called upon as a business school because we've got a better P&L and reserves to chip in more to support the schools that, if we look at the current scenario, have just lost billions of federal funding.
Yeah. It's no coincidence that the business schools are usually the nicest buildings on campus. Kay, I'm just looking at your beautiful surrounding and I'm thinking, well, yeah, the value of the MBA degree is all these things you're saying, right? Does it have market value, et cetera? But, what if the main argument for it and the thing that might still keep 20-somethings applying and coming is just getting through that quarter life crisis thing, right? It's like, I like learning. I want to be back in that environment, but maybe not super rigorous. I kind of want to have some fun. I want to be in a beautiful place. I want to expand my network. And it just, at least for me, it sort of satisfied that itch of, that sort of aimlessness of your late 20s. It's sort of that
something else. Yeah. FOMO? What am I missing out on by not doing this? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think we're all sort of implying that, like, the learning experience, let's be generous and say it's not the only reason you go, right?
Mhm.
And even in those hardcore schools where you are eating your broccoli with the courses, can you really learn finance in 7 weeks, right? I mean, it's 7 weeks of these courses, right? So let's be real about that. But what about business school as an experience at that crucible time of your life?
Yes. I mean, I think until such a time that the data shows that it's impossible slash really, really, really difficult for an individual to be a career switcher by taking an MBA program, be it non-work compatible or work compatible, then yes, you're still going to be able to say there is clear benefit. All these folks who come in from Teach for America and then go through a program and come out the other side as product managers in tech.
AKA
It's a
sellouts.
great way to test out that hypothesis. Is there something more I could be? Just an example I picked,
Randomly.
don't know why those two examples came to me, but it allows you to do that. And the thing that we've always said within career management is what better time to kind of, throw it all up in the air, stick a middle finger up to the pathway that your parents said you should be following, and just try some different stuff and see what feels right or doesn't. And much as this pains a head of a careers team and a dean of a business school to say, it's like, you don't have to have a job by graduation. If you can wait until you find the right thing, but be that 3 months, 6 months, however long your credit card can sustain you, then take the time to work out, if I do this fundamental shift at this stage of my career before I'm too set in my ways, then why not? And I'm doing it, to your point, alongside a bunch of people who, because of the genius of the admissions teams, are my kind of weirdos. And there's a core group of friends who I will be with for life. I'll be, godparent to their children. We'll be meeting up in 20, 30 years, kind of looking back and still thinking about, it was 10 years ago that we graduated. Yeah, it's all wonderful. And I think that element of it will exist rather than just purely going for the academics, which I don't think is the reason people go for it anymore.
Okay, so I think this is the perfect moment to switch gears from WTF is up with business schools to WTF you should do about it, specifically as a prospective student or maybe even a current student. So let me throw this scenario your way, Kay. Imagine that, as Omar said, you're in your late 20s, you're feeling that quarter life itch, you're seeing all your friends posting about these beautiful business school campuses on Instagram. You're thinking, do I pull the trigger? If you were to give them some sage advice, some wisdom from the ages to guide their decision making, what would you want them thinking about?
I'd want them ignoring advice from anyone who's already done the MBA
Real? And
and
why?
actually talk to people who are currently enrolled in a program. The main issue I find is that it's the donning of the rose-tinted glasses. The longer you get out of the program, the more you get back into either your old life or your new life, the pain and the anxiety and the ambiguity and the whatever, that all disappears and it just turns into this. Had some great tailgates and party times and ski trips, and oh God, wasn't that professor great, but that one was awful. Jolly japes. I want you to talk to somebody who's currently in a program and ask them, tell me first what you wrote on your admissions essay for careers and why you wanted to go to business school. And now tell me the real reason why you still think the MBA is valid and valuable now that you've been here for 2 quarters, half a semester, whatever it is. Because fundamentally those answers will be very different. I remember one of the students at Haas I talked to was like, her icebreaker opener in conversations was, so what's the bullshit you put on the application and why are you really here? Because she wanted to understand who they were as a person. What have you been telling yourself about why you felt the MBA was important? And actually, now that you're here and you're in it, what is the real reason? Because I want to know what is really making you tick and why you're here and why you're part of this community.
So if you do that diligence and or you're already in a program, what do you think about this idea of learning over the course of your lifetime too, right? It does seem like that's where some of these brands, as we said earlier, are stretching out. And one of the real potential value propositions they can make good on, right? Because I just remember learning about management at 26 and not needing it until I was 36 and had to actually fire somebody, right? So like, did I want that? Did I want those courses 10 years later, not 26 when I wasn't really paying attention and
Hmm.
wanted to go, hang out at the wineries? So like, do you think that people can trust that they're gonna, at least from these schools, get that kind of drip of learning throughout their lifetime now if they really want it? Or is that not really where they're headed and they should focus more on just rounding out their skills with online courses and things? How do you stay
Ooh,
relevant?
how do you stay relevant?
Or should you depend on our employers to help keep you relevant?
I think it's more the latter rather than the former. I think the idea of, let's be harsh, student always. I think that appeals to a certain subset who will come back for the executive education, who will do extension classes, who will take advantage of the fact that as alumni from their schools, they have the chance to audit a class every year. Some people love that. It's just like, collecting certificates, collecting certifications. But for a lot of other people, I suspect, or I would hope, that they're going to find other more real world ways to push themselves, either by doing stretch assignments within their current organizations, by shadowing, by thinking I've been too comfy here for years. I really should start applying and looking what else is out there because I'm not learning anymore. Having that self-realization and the hope that by having taken that step to put a kind of a fork in the road by doing a program, be it full-time or part-time, that your brain is okay with doing that moment of reflection of, there's something missing. I'm itching to try something new. Does it have to be doing some kind of traditional learning, or could I just have a conversation with my manager and say, you know what, I'm thinking about X. I'd love to try something new. What are my options of getting a secondment, doing something different, or just walking in one day and going, I've got a new job, 2 weeks notice, peace out.
Wow.
Which again, if you'd stuck with the UK system, it would be a minimum 4 weeks. The more senior you are, more like 3 months. So
Well,
me as a hiring manager would not have to suddenly freak out that someone's walked in and said, hi, you've got 2 weeks and really I'm taking a week off on vacation. So see ya. And by the way, I haven't written down what my job is. So good luck.
oh my goodness. Well, let's end this conversation on the same note we began on, which is no matter how beautiful the campus is, no matter how much soul searching you enjoy on those lush arboretums, at the end of the day, people go to business school to get jobs. And Kay, you are so well positioned as someone sitting at the vortex, the nerve center of MBA hiring. When you look in your crystal ball and you imagine what MBA jobs are going to look like 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, where do you see things headed, especially vis-a-vis AI and all these turbulent changes?
I'm hoping the AI kind of Emperor's New Clothes will have calmed down in 3 to 5 years or 10 years time. Right now, it feels like it's everyone going, which kind of low level, mundane admin tasks can I shoot that way and not hire junior analysts or coders because AI will do it for me, even though I know that there are fundamental flaws with their output.
And I think you could argue, just for the sake of argument, Kay, a lot of what MBAs do in their first jobs are those junior things. Make me a financial model, make me a PowerPoint presentation, the very things that AI is suddenly good at.
And hopefully they will still do that, but they'll have a quicker way of getting to that point. But what they'll actually then be doing, and what we try and tell students, is it's no longer, the junior analysts maybe are doing that, or maybe not. Maybe it is a computer model. Why they're hiring you is you're going to be providing the recommendations and the roadmap to actually move this idea forward, or bringing your new perspective and saying, yeah, you may well be going down that path, but let's pre-mortem this, and you haven't thought about X, Y, and Z. So I think careers in the future, very much back to that, the GMAT list of the skills they're looking for. They're going to want MBAs to be that higher level of strategic thinker. They may still graduate into a non-managerial role. So Omar, back to your point, that management 101 class may not be necessary for 3 to 5 years after. But actually, I think it will, because they'll be dotted line responsible for global teams, for work streams, for working with different stakeholders across these businesses that they're in. I don't think roles are going to be so clearly defined by hard trade-offs or handoffs between this is where your job starts and my job ends. It's going to be a
Or
lot more
maybe Kay,
fluid.
future MBAs will be managing AI employees. So maybe all that managerial
Probably
training
we're
will
all
have
going
to
to
be
be in charge
updated.
of avatars. Yeah.
That's right.
Drinking boba tea and managing avatars. I hope that future jobs will be relying more on these kind of higher level viewpoints rather than people who are just in the weeds responding by rote to whatever their strategic plan or their manager is telling them to do. The real value of the MBA is these people who are able to, with comfort and confidence and a bit of risk, actually just challenge a thought process and say, we might want to do this differently, and be okay with the fact that that might fail, but they'll still learn something from it.
I love that. I love that. And, thanks for bringing us back to the humans and the human connection, because I think, just to summarize some of what I've heard, Kay, even though we can all agree the institution of business schools and the cultural and professional value that it has is in need of some reformation, right? That there's still, it still has a ton of value.
Mhm.
And this is a bit of a loyalist critique that we're all giving right now, because we've benefited from
Mhm.
MBAs and have worked for that, for these schools, and still believe in the value. I think where what you're saying is in part that where people need to disavow themselves of is this sort of this notion that it's going to be the panacea, right? You come for
Yeah.
2 years, all the work you've done. A common refrain you would hear is like, the hardest part of a top MBA program is just getting in. Once you're in, you're set. And
Yeah.
it wasn't that long ago that we were seeing job offers for full time going out to students before they even started on campus, right? Before they even started their first
Mhm.
year. And those days are gone, right? So
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is people just need to be clear-eyed about the skills that they're building and not view an MBA as, bestowing that all on them for the rest of their career, and that's completely future-proof, right? This is not a one and done thing anymore.
No.
MBAs need to stay curious, keep that appetite to learn and grow, learn on the job, and
Yeah.
continue to just take that on and not expect that these programs are going to deliver that indefinitely. It's great if
Mhm.
you can get in, if you want that experience, much like undergrad at this point. If you want that experience to explore and meet people and try some things on, as you're saying, and you can financially tolerate that opportunity cost of not making money for those 2 or 3 years, that's great. There's still a lot of merit in this, but it's just to reset expectations a little bit, that it may not set you up for everything, right,
Right.
in the
Yeah.
way that we.
That you expected it would. Yeah. The biggest myth we bust on the daily is that you're unlikely to get your dream job straight out of business school. That's no longer the norm within business, and it's regularly not the norm coming out of your program because you're untried and untested. Very few people are going to take a risk unless you have really just gone to a insert name of European school based on the outskirts of Paris that has a 1-year MBA. You're just doing it to get the credential and going back into your existing firm so they can charge more in billable hours for you. Everything else, it's like you have to prove a point coming out of school, and your dream job that you thought that you wrote on your admissions essay may not be the actual dream job you start shooting for 3-5 years out of your MBA. And that's how it should be. We grow, we change our targets based on all this information we get in on a day-to-day basis. Let's not be humdrum, and let's be different and try different things.
Yeah, that's such a great note to end us on, because I think it's always been a bit of a myth that you can make a 180-degree move with an MBA. Are there people who do it? Sure, right?
But
But
it's
it's
not the majority. Yeah.
right. It's always been sort of like maybe 90, maybe 60. Now, maybe it's 30 degrees. But if you value the experience itself, that's what it's for. The other reality I'll just throw out there is, I think when people adhere just to the rankings and make their decisions based on that, they forget how different these schools actually are in terms of their culture, which is a
Hmm.
real thing. And to your point of talking to current students, that's what you should be interrogating, is not just why are you there, but what's it really like?
Hmm.
Are these my people? Because that's really the value of it, the experience itself. And also, all of these schools to some extent are regional, right?
Okay, throw
And
that one in at
Uh-oh.
the end.
You
Yeah, no,
opened up
I
a can
agree,
of
but
worms here.
that's a swear word for a bunch of schools on the West
I know.
Coast.
It's just the reality. If you look at the LinkedIn alumni
Yeah.
tool and you see where people tend to concentrate, no surprise, it's within fairly close proximity
Yeah.
to where the school is. And if you're just going by the rankings, you're not giving enough thought to where do I actually really want to be and where is my network going to be strongest? Just the reality, even the top schools.
Agreed.
Okay, Kay, any parting words? And if not, I'll let Jeremy close us.
I would just say, do your research. And the only way your careers team can help you is that if you actually come and talk to them and let them help you. So do not suffer in silence. Anyone currently listening to this from Foster, I'm talking to you.
Well, Huskies of the world, you have been warned.
Come and talk to me. I have lots of opinions.
This applies to every MBA, every prospective MBA, which is, especially in this tough moment, lean on your tribe. And Kay and her teammates and Omar and his teammates, they are very much your tribe and they want to see you succeed. So make those connections in the real world, as scary as that is. And then Kay, we can't thank you enough because you made the real world connection that made us the LinkedIn guys. Thank you so much.
My proudest moment.
And with that, you now know WTF is up with business schools. Thank you so much, Kay. Thank you, Omar. And good luck to everyone out there. May your journey across the world of business schools always be spicy. Cheers.